So, running a business, is this interesting to you? I've had some people comment that I never realized I'd care what running a comic store was like. But so I want to talk about that, why it matters. Hey there, this is Perch. I got into this doing these videos, well, for a ton of reasons, which I've discussed before. But one of the things that I always wondered whether it would fly or not, or whether anybody would care, is kind of the details, the ins and outs of actually running a comic store, and more importantly, running a business. And in some cases, like with everything, it's always good if you have multiple motivations. I wanted to share this knowledge. I wanted to start a conversation around it. One of the downsides about doing these videos and having it be one way is that I really haven't gotten a chance to do much conversation. So one reason why I have appreciated the streams that I've done with Wes from Thinking Critical is that at times there's been some other retailers, some other people who are actually out there trying to sell comics and run this business and kind of comparing, how are things the same versus how are things different, and what does that world look like. So that's always interesting to me. And full disclosure, I also want to admit there was really only one individual, but a couple people who made some noise around. This guy doesn't really run a comic store; he's faking it. And I wanted to just, out of some spite, I guess, I don't know, basically just do these videos like, yeah, actually, I mean, just because you don't like some of what I'm saying doesn't mean that I'm just some lunatic here spouting nonsense. Because hopefully by now, with all the description of the videos, I've made my case. But if I have to, I'll film a little video of me unboxing comics, which will be the most boring video. Put some music behind it, just unboxing comics and taking it out. And, discovering, like, it'll be like unboxing videos. My daughters love watching those where people unbox toys. I have no idea why. Like, what is the appeal there? But who knows? Oh well, those people are making more money than me. That's all I know. I'm making zero, so that's not hard. And anyway, with YouTube videos. Um, so why should you care about the comic store business? Why should you care about any of this? And it's a good question, because if you're not opening up a store, if you do not plan on running a business, then, I mean, what does it matter? Your goal is just to get comics and read them and enjoy them, and that's great. By the way, I hope that is you. I hope that your primary focus, as it comes to the comics community, is to, get comics, purchase them legally, read them, like some, not like others, and just participate in this ongoing story. I remember when CB Cebulski, I've mentioned this a few times, when he came in to Marvel as the new editor in chief, that he made this comment that, and he was talking to this writers' room. They had filmed this little video, and he said, we get to be part of this giant ongoing story, this amazing, always living alive story that is our characters in this epic that we're creating, and that's a huge responsibility. It's a huge task, and I love still that sentiment. I think that is the right way to think. I agree. That's, if you're coming into a publisher and you're coming in to write characters, you should absolutely have that kind of mentality of, you know, we're telling a huge ongoing story with characters, and I think that's really important. Now, unfortunately, the actions have not matched the words, but that doesn't mean the words are wrong. I think those words are still right. But hopefully that's you. Comic stores, I mean, I just want to be honest here. Will comic stores be around in 20 years? They will not be around the way they are today. I think I could say that pretty definitively. There's not going to be a brick and mortar shop with some comics on the walls, and you can come in, you can buy them, and you can leave. It's going to be fundamentally different. And I say that with a lot of confidence, because what I believe will happen is that you'll see stores evolve to having different products to sell and having different ways of selling those products. It's gonna transform, and I think we're seeing some of that now, where there's a greater emphasis on the experience and the service. It's funny. So I hope I'm not dating myself, and you guys know what I'm talking about. But like a good 2 decades ago, I don't remember. You started seeing more theme restaurants in the U.S. in Western. And the best one to point to is kind of the Rainforest Cafe. If you've ever been there, it's a giant kind of jungle that is that has food, but it's like you're sitting in a jungle. They've got animatronic animals flapping around, and monkeys and other things. And it's what they call an immersive experience, immersive dining experience. There's other places like this that have cropped up. Disney Springs has the T-Rex Cafe, and there's other little things. Now, I'm not talking about like pop-up restaurants and gimmicks like you go in and they blindfold you and then they feed you food, or tasting menus or any of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about an immersive experience where you go in and it's more about the experience and the food. And that's particularly true with the Rainforest Cafe, which has absolutely disgusting food. I mean, no two ways about it. That place is gross. The food I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's not good food. Put it this way: if you go and eat at McDonald's, you're getting equivalent or better food than the Rainforest Cafe. The difference is you're paying 3 times as much for a burger that's going to be about the same. They also have a chocolate dessert that has like fireworks coming off of it, and it's the diabetes mountain, I think is what they call it. But anyway, the immersive experience is it's struggled with restaurants. It hasn't really adapted. But if you go look at Japan, you see that experience is king, and you see a lot more experience-based restaurants, much more elaborate, much more immersive, where there's a real theme and it's being carried through everything, sometimes to crazy degrees. There's actually a restaurant in Japan where they've got like these gelatinous cadavers filled with food, and they bring the body out and they give you little knives and you're supposed to cut into the body and eat the food inside. It's just super, super weird. But that exists. But the idea that the experience is king is moving slowly into other things. It's moving into malls. It's moving into retail stores. It's moving into everything. And so you will see this hit with comics. Comics are going to have to transform, and there will be a bunch of changes that will take place in the store. And the direct market itself is going to adapt and shift. But why I think it matters, in particular for you to care about the inner workings of comic shops and the business, is because at times, and it's really to help your frustration. So at times you're confronted, pushed, absorbed with things that seem crazy or irritating or frustrating, or any number of things. You're confronted with negative parts of this business. And so the comic store is kind of a conduit to all this, and understanding how the business works, how it operates, what people care about. It can, number one, get you better deals, do better by your money inside that comic shop. Number two, give you some empathy for what's going on and why. Not that you need to feel sorry for the comic shop or the publishers or anyone, but just knowledge is power. So if you understand better kind of how the things work, it helps you not get caught up and absorbed in the kind of the negativity swarm that can happen. And the last reason, if you understand better how the business works, and again, I'm saying also from the perspective of you don't plan on opening a business yourself. If you ever plan or have a dream of opening up a comic store, then it's obviously valuable. I shouldn't need to sell any of that to you. You should get all the information you can. But assuming that's not you, I think the biggest thing is you have, as a consumer, as a buyer of comics, you have a lot of power, and you probably do not realize the level of power that you have. You have a power of, if you know how to provide feedback and changes, you can usually get those. This industry is still small. It's a billion-dollar industry that operates very, very small. And in the world in general, these types of industries are being transformed one by one. And I'll give you examples of this. Hotels used to operate much more locally, much more independently, much more, for lack of a better word, mom and pop than what they do today. What happened is the corporations came in, they drove efficiencies, they hired consultants, and they drove these businesses to operate more like a machine. They had to, for profitability and to maximize growth and other things. And a lot of these entities are public companies, so they have an obligation to shareholders to drive this kind of growth. Same thing has been true with, further back with TV networks. They've consolidated, they've joined mega conglomerates, and they operate that way. And you see this with all kinds of industries where once upon a time they used to work very, a decision could be made without committee, and and you could move nimbly and fast, and you were small, and you had a level of autonomy. And comics work that way today. You can see it in the decisions of who they hire and what books get done and where. And when they publish these things, decisions are being made very, very ad hoc, if you will. It's like it's a very small group of people that are able to get together and say, hey, let's bring in Zoe Quinn to write a Hellcat story for this Fearless book that is all female creators working on female characters. And you think about all the decisions there that were made there. The decision to make a all female book, uh, that that would have been harder to do in a machine corporate setting, because there would have been a lot of other questions around how are we going to roll this out, how are we going to market it, how are we going to maximize it, how are we going to do what we need to do to make this book successful. Isn't even a good idea. Are we going to, what's the controversy versus value? And if we are going to do it, how do we put the best people forward so that we can stand behind it and say, this was a good experiment, I'm glad we did it. Those steps don't exist today because comics, despite being owned by Time Warner, AT&T, and Disney, still operate with a high level of autonomy. Old school publishing mentality. That's how they operate. And that is going to change. Probably fairly soon. It's going to change. Not because the business is failing, not because somebody read an issue of Tom King's Batman and said, what is this, what's the expression, low T Bruce Wayne doing? It's going to change because there is a lot of money. Because eventually the financiers and the people and the CFOs and the other people get together and say, Batman as a property is $1 billion worldwide property. How are we maximizing it? How are we taking care of it? How are we getting the value out of this property? And they start doing math, and they start taking decisions away from individual creators. It becomes much more of a machine, and that day is coming. I would predict that day is coming in the next 5 years. I think we're Mark Miller predicted this, and it's definitely true that we're about to flip into a transformation with comics. It comes about every 15 to 20 years, and we're at that cycle now, and we're ready for it. And once that cycle hits, again, changes are going to come. So that's where we're sitting. And so understanding the comic business, understanding how stores operate, what they can and can't do, where their hangups are, where the humor is, and the bad parts and negativity, it will help you through this transformation, because the transformation of this business is coming imminently. Definitely in the time it would take you to, and maybe a couple more years, to go to college and start a job if you're in that stage of your life, or the time for your brand new baby to go from diapers to walking around in kindergarten. That time span is going to create comic transformation. And when I say that, no, I want to definitively state no. I am not saying that the comic publishers are both going to collapse and everything will be done on Indiegogo. That is ridiculous. The comic business is much bigger than that. And that change is worth paying attention to as a consumer, because you're going to be the person who is going to be shaping it. If you want to grab that power that you have, you're going to be the person buying into it. You're going to be the person investing your time in your life into this. So learning, understanding it, it's in your best interest. And I think it's very important, and it can be fun. I hope this was kind of a by the book, maybe more businessy kind of conversation. I hope it was still fun, because these topics are fun to speculate on where the future is going. We're all Tony Stark. We all get to be futurists. And this is, I'm telling you, the last part of it is so much more fun than having a debate over whether or not you are a Nazi because you like a particular artist. That debate sucks. So let's talk about things that actually matter, which is how this business is going to change and transform. Leave me some comments below. What do you think? Would love to get your thoughts and your views on the whole thing. Like, subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Love the likes. Love you passing along things to friends. I'm inching closer to 1,000. Maybe by the time this video is released, I'll be there already. But I would love to get some viral sharing going because I don't care about the money. I don't care about the subscriber count, but I do care about good information getting out to the hands of everyone, because then we'll get more engagement, more communication, better videos from people far better than me coming in and helping us all get through all this. But thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Like always.